And welcome to the third part of the Demolition Racer LP as we move on to the Semi-Pro League, which is the first of the leagues you unlock in the Demolition Racers Demolition League mode. So, for this, as you see, the first three cars that we started with are now locked out, and we have to choose between either the Renegade or the Mantis. Now, I'm going to go with the Renegade because the Renegade is the more consistent on all fields of the bunch. And because it already comes in a blue and white paint scheme, I don't need to change it. It's already good to go. Yes, you will definitely be able to tell that I'm basically just going through for a blue and white scheme for all of the vehicles, just to kind of, I guess, I don't know, keep a consistency during this playthrough. More just because, you know, blue and white's kind of my thing anyways. I do like the way it looks. But we are here on the first track, which is a new track so far in this point of the game, Meltdown. It's one of the very few tracks in the entire game that actually shows the name of it upon the loading screen. It's not like the Dreamcast version where it would just tell you what the next track is, because in the Dreamcast version it just every loading screen is the exact same. But other than that, yeah, Meltdown's a pretty interesting track. It's very high speed focused. There's a lot of speed sections, and as a result, vehicles can tend to break away from others very easily. So you kind of just have to be careful more often than not. Another thing that's about this track that's actually kind of annoying, you might have seen that little tunnel section earlier, that small little, like, that left-hander tunnel. There is a question mark block in there for extra points. The problem is it's placed in such an area there where the AI is almost always guaranteed to hit it. It's very rare the AI will not run into it, and because since in this game they can activate the same pickup boxes that you can, like this. And by the way, this is the left-handed tunnel I'm talking about. This section here, there's always a box in here, but because you usually have to start at the back, and by the time you get up there, there usually might be a couple people in front of you. Actually, getting that box is way more difficult than you would expect. Not really sure why they set it up like that. Maybe they thought people would try to go for it if they're playing the reverse version of the track. Maybe, who knows? It just kind of seems like a bit of a whoops. Why did you go with that sort of approach? Anyways, but yeah, the Renegade. I'm trying to think, what is the Renegade supposed to be? The back of it kind of reminds me of like a Mercedes-Benz C-Class in a way. But the front of it looks a little more like a 90s, like a late 90s Bentley. I don't know. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like this interesting, like little like kind of pattern of stuff. Anyway, so I'm not really entirely sure. But I know for a fact the previous two vehicles we were in were very easy to pick up because you had the Marauder, which is very clearly a Ford Maverick, and the Cruiser, which I mentioned is like a 57 Chevy, but it's really more like a 57 Cadillac, really, because of the way that thing is done up. Also, I like to just ask the people at IGCD, why do you list Demolition Racer No Exit and Demolition Racer together? That's those I think should be separated. I probably have to do that myself, won't I? Yes, I will. I'll have to do that because apparently no one else will. But yeah, according to this, they believe the Renegade is like a Pontiac Le Mans, a '71 Pontiac Le Mans. By the way, we did only come second in that, but it's okay because in this we need to at least come third or better. This is going to be the last of the leagues where we can get away with not winning one of the events and still being able to move on to the next one. So, get used to that. But yeah, they say it's like a '71 Pontiac Le Mans, which in the front I could sort of see that, but definitely not in the back. I don't know what they're saying. Like, this is kind of like a Bentley and a Mercedes C-Class kind of thrown together, really. Some people are... Yeah, it's just... It's hard to say sometimes. I would say, like, maybe... Okay, one person did have an interesting post. It was like, because it links to a 1981 Bentley Mulsanne-looking vehicle. It's not the actual car, but it's one in the game Driver 3 where it has a very similar look. And to be honest, that, even though again the back is not correct, it's actually a lot more accurate. So maybe, who knows? I think an old Bentley is probably the most accurate. It's probably what they were going for. It's just the way the back is done. It kind of gives off a Mercedes C-Class vibe. So, but hey, it doesn't matter. We're talking about a fictional vehicle in the game, anyways. That's nothing important. We're currently on Freeway Driveby again. It's still an interesting track. Meltdown and Freeway Driveby, I know for a fact, did not return to No Exit. I think No Exit does have a track called Meltdown, but it is not the same. It is not the same Meltdown as it is in that version, if I remember correctly. At least I'm trying to remember. Like I could just be remembering completely incorrectly, because you know that's how my brain tends to work. I could look at my old videos, because I actually reminded myself to look to timestamp these. I need to do that with all of them. And yes, I did just look. There is in fact a track called Meltdown, and it is in fact a completely different. And as I correctly mentioned, it is in fact a completely different track. So it is interesting though that they have a Meltdown in that game, and it's not the same track. Again, if you do have a chance to play Demolition Racer, I would recommend the Dreamcast version. The Dreamcast version just has more going for it. It has more cars, it has more tracks, it has more pickups and stuff. You can actually kill your opponents by T-bones, which gets you 200 points. There's more going on in the game, and it looks visually it looks nicer too, because it's a Dreamcast versus PS1. So if you are going to play a Demolition Racer, probably that's the one I would say to play. But the PS1 version is still a fun game, and you know, I wanted to show this one off, so that's what I'm doing there. But yeah, look, I can't believe it's looking back at those old videos. I can't believe I did that all the way back in January 2015. In fact, I think I actually did it a little bit earlier. I think I started recording some of that in December 2014, and I didn't upload it until January 2015. I think that's how I ended up doing that, if I'm remembering correctly. I could, but anyway, but yeah. It's crazy though. It's just one of these things I think about, just how long I've been doing this, and sometimes wishing I was more active and doing stuff more often. But it's just a case of just, you know, things always happening, and things happening in my personal life, or just kind of how I've been going at different things, and just, you know, how things work all the time. Like it's inconsistent like that. But you know, I didn't really have a whole lot to say about that event, because that's the first repeat track. But what's not a repeat track is this one right here. This is called Scrap Heap. And yeah, you pretty much get the idea. It's pretty much like at a junkyard of sorts, almost, in a way. Although it kind of looks like it's also on the outskirts of a junkyard. It kind of goes like in and out. It's an interesting layout for a track. Definitely a little bit different compared to some of the other ones, but this one does give you some good points opportunities, especially with the splitting paths there and whatnot. But it's just one of those things you got to be fairly careful of too, because again, they do kind of like to split off a little bit, and some of these areas, as you see here, can get quite narrow, so you just have to be careful. And as you see there, they put a question mark box right after the end of a jump. So should mention, by the way, I think it did. I think it happened with this league or something, and this is an occasional glitch I have with the game. And no, before you ask, it's not emulator related, because I've had this happen on real hardware as well. Every now and then, for some reason, the audio starts to glitch. Some of the audio starts to glitch out, where it won't play certain sounds, like crashing into stuff, or the countdown timers, or like after a bit, like sometimes it'll just completely stop playing any sound. It doesn't always happen, and you know, it's very random on when it might decide to do that, but it's just something I just, for some reason, it just does it, and it's done it on real hardware for me too, and I'm not really sure why it does it. It's just, you know, it's just one of those things. So if I recall correctly, I believe like at some point I saved the game because I knew it was happening, and then I just restarted the emulator just to have a fresh instance. And because you could save after every race, you can always just it gives you the option to continue the league where you left off. So it's not like I'd be losing any. It's not like I'd be losing any progress by doing that, and that's the good thing about that. So just the fact that they do have that feature, and it's a thing I like about this. Is this game, to be honest, and is very generous. It's not like some of the test drive. It's not like some of the test drive games Pitbull were making at the time, where it's more like points based or stuff, or it's you gotta, like, you know, or like you like lose and then that's your only chance. They make it so that if you don't win, it just asks you to do it again, and you could restart. This game is very generous about that during a time when the games really want to kind of get you to do it right and do it right the first time in order to kind of, in a sort of way, to kind of extend the length of the game because of how things were back then. But this game's just, and they do the exact same thing with the Dreamcast version. Just it just tends to be fairly generous. Anyways, we're back on the first map, the very first map that we started with in the first league, USS Demolition. Like, again, this track does come back in No Exit. And this track is very much one of the more simpler, one of the more simpler layout sort of tracks. Kind of got that sort of thing going for it. But it's one of my personal favorites in the game because a lot of the vehicles tend, to the most part, whilst they will split apart after a while, they also tend to kind of stay grouped together a little bit more so here. So, and because of how they might be in groups and stuff and whatnot, it means you get a lot of good opportunities to get some really good hits on them to really kind of rack up the points. Sort of like that. Should mention, by the way, the other car, I didn't really show it off too much because I went with the Renegade here, but the other car that you have that you can drive for this is called the Mantis, and that's like and that's kind of based off of an Aston Martin, like an Aston Martin Virage of the 90s, and that one, you know, it does kind of make a bit of sense. One person, though, is saying on IGCT it's the De Tomaso Deauville, and annoyingly, the link is dead, so I don't actually know what it looks like by clicking on the damn link. Yeah, I mean, I can sort of see what they're saying, but no, definitely not. If anything, that De Tomaso Deauville has a little bit more of the Renegade's look than the Mantis's. That's one of the problems with a lot of these old games, is like trying to figure out what exactly were they trying to go for, basing it off of them. So it's always one of those sort of things, like, what is this supposed to be? What is this? What is that? Can we talk to anybody who worked on this game who would know? And the answer to that one sometimes usually is no, I'm afraid. But whatever. I'm kind of reaching back into that bit of that dorky side again. As we come to probably my least favorite map in the game, Hunter's Quarry. I don't like this map because one main reason, well, actually two main reasons. It's a mostly high-speed map, but the problem is the track is way too short. This is one of the shortest tracks in the entire game, and as a result, getting points on here is actually way more difficult than it should be. Especially with vehicles like this that tend to go like these sorts of speeds. It's not easy. And I know some of you might be asking, well, could it just be because of the fact that you're running this overclocked, which means you don't have like to slow down and stuff? And it's like, well, I mean, I'm sure the slowdown might have a little bit to do with it, but I don't think I don't really think it's gonna make that much of a difference, honestly. It's just that sort of thing. And you can see just how difficult it is sometimes to get for death from above. You really just have to call your shot. You really just have to call your shot. You just have to pray that you have the right timing and you're just in the right spot. It is not an easy task to do, believe me. If it was, I'd be doing it quite a bit more often, but unfortunately that's not the case. I think the very last league I don't even get it once. So that tells you the challenge in getting timing that to get it. Believe me, I'm trying. Okay. It's not like I'm trying to just forget about it. It'd be like that, you know. And yeah, as you can see there, I've only got about 300 or so points, whilst I'm in 6th. Again, this one for me, just whatever reason, I'm not very good at it because it's mostly a high-speed track that that's too short. It's definitely it's one of my least favorites for that reason. Just yeah, you can see there, like I was trying to go for it and missed, and I could only end up with a tenner for my troubles. This later, but I was really just focused on just trying to get myself up. But as you see, 5th place with 325 points. But somehow I still managed to get 3rd place, so I was like, okay, well that's good enough, I guess, because then it means we can move on to immediately switching over to one of my favorite tracks, Pitbull Speedway. Now, just like Hunter's Quarry, this is a high-speed track, but this is actually, unlike Hunter's Quarry, this is a longer track. You got more open space, and as a result, it means you can easily keep yourself more in the action. This track basically has does not suffer from many of the problems that the previous track does, which makes this just a much more nicer track to be on. And plus they brought it back for the Dreamcast version, which is also nice. And you can also see, another thing I should have mentioned during this, you also might notice the little accolade banners up above, because at the time Demolition Racer was originally going to be made published by Accolade. They were a US-based games company that had a whole bunch of successful stuff. They were, and at the time they originally housed the Test Drive license because Accolade kind of birthed the Test Drive series. And Pitbull Syndicate were brought on to do this to help with the series since Test Drive 4 in 1997. And I guess Pitbull wanted to make a spin-off. I guess Accolade greenlit, which of course was this year Demolition Racer. And I imagine during the time that they were developing this game, because at the time they still thought it was going to be it would still be published as an Accolade game. It had the Accolade banners, but of course, Accolade kind of went into turmoil by the end of the 90s and were eventually bought out by the French publisher Infogrames, which is why at the start of the game you see the Infogrames splash logo rather than the Accolade one, because it was that sort of transition that was happening at the time. But I guess because of when this game was made, it didn't really they didn't really bother to update the banners. They thought, it'll do. So yeah, as a result, it still says Accolade, which tells you when this game was being made. I believe the last people-related product to still have the Accolade, the proper Accolade mentions and splash logo is their snowboarding game spin-off Big Air, which I think released in early '99. And I'm going to say it right now, as someone who's played Big Air, don't. It's not very good at all. I was not a fan of that game. And yeah, you can see another reason I really like Pitbull Speedway. It's just really easy to make a lot of points on. Even if you don't get death from aboves and whatnot, you really just have a lot of great opportunities to really just to really just go in at full force and just hit someone and get like 25s or 50s fairly easily. It's just, this map is just one of those really strong ones for that particular reason. And after this, I should make something to eat. I haven't really eaten anything all day. It's 7 p.m. You might be thinking, Jesus Christ, you should have ate something already, and which I say, I know, I should have. But I was asleep most of it because, again, I'm recording. At the time of me recording this, I'm still only a day removed from having gotten my second COVID shot, and holy crap, has it made me tired all day, mostly. Thankfully, though, I haven't had any other major symptoms. It's just that, and of course, soreness in the arm where I got the shot, which is fine because I had that the first time. That's perfectly normal. Yeah, you can see, though, I was really cutting it close. There's only 3 other cars left, apart from mine. And, yeah. But I still made a lot of points and very comfortably got the win on this one, too. And after 6 races, that cuts it for this particular league, the Semi-Pro League. Yes, that little video never changes. We got some extra game modes. We got the Predator car, which we'll be using in the next league. And the tracks, we unlocked the tracks that we were on, minus Pelton Stadium, because that one is part of the Arena League. So yeah, there we go, though. That is going to do it for this part. Now, that just leaves the Pro League is next to do. 2 more leagues left to go, and that's going to be the next part, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. You enjoyed this, make sure to hit comment, like, subscribe. Hit comment, like, subscribe, whatever. Check out my links down below. Patreon members, you get $1. You give $1, you could fucking... I'm really messing this up. $1 or more will get your name in the videos, and as always, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you all in the next one.